The voting chamber fell silent as the display screen showed the results. Another rejection. Another failure. David Reed watched the numbers flash red across the holographic interface and felt his stomach turn. 14 million dead. That was the current count from the Halcyon cluster. 14 million civilians caught between two massive fleets that refused to stop shooting at each other. He sat in the human observation booth, a small enclosed space overlooking the main council floor. For 200 years, humanity had maintained this position. Observers only, never interfering, never taking sides. Earth's government had decided long ago that galactic politics were too messy, too complicated, too prone to endless conflicts that solved nothing. Below him, the council members argued. Speaker Torin, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms, tried to maintain order. His voice echoed through the chamber as delegates from dozens of species shouted over each other. The Drathian representative, Prime Director Harsk, slammed his scaled fist on his podium. His species controlled half the disputed territory in the Halcyon cluster. They wanted it all. Across the chamber, Fleet Mistress Serana of the Sorvan Exploratory Command stood with her head crest raised in defiance. Her people had colonized 3 worlds in the cluster 50 years ago. She refused to abandon them. The minerals buried in those asteroid fields were worth fortunes. Both sides claimed historical rights. Both sides had valid legal arguments. Neither side would compromise. David had watched this same scene play out for 18 months. Proposals for peacekeeping forces got vetoed. Sanctions were blocked. Mediation efforts collapsed before they started. The Council's rules required unanimous approval for military intervention. With the Drathians and Sorvan both holding council seats, nothing could pass. His datapad buzzed, a message from Earth, encrypted with the highest security protocols. David glanced around the observation booth. He was alone. He opened the message and read 3 lines that made his heart race. Midnight Protocol approved. Fleet deploying in 6 hours. Prepare for diplomatic fallout. David read it again, then a 3rd time. Midnight Protocol was the code name for Earth's contingency plan, the one they had drafted decades ago but never intended to use. The plan that broke every principle of human non-interference. He looked down at the council floor where Harsk and Serana were still screaming at each other. Earth had decided to act. 6 hours later, David sat in an emergency session. The chamber was packed. Word had spread that something unusual was happening. Sensor stations across the galaxy had detected a massive human fleet movement. 40 warships, the largest deployment humanity had ever assembled, were in transit toward the Halcyon cluster. Speaker Torin called for order. His voice carried concern and confusion. Humanity had never deployed military forces outside their own territory. Never. In 2 centuries of council membership, humans had been the most peaceful, most withdrawn species in galactic politics. Harsk rose from his seat, his scales rippling with anger. He pointed one clawed finger at David's booth. Explain this violation. Human ships are entering sovereign Drathian space without authorization. Serana was on her feet too. They're also approaching Sorvan colonies. This is an act of war against both our peoples. David stood and activated his podium microphone. Every eye in the chamber turned toward him. He had never spoken during a council session before. Observers stayed silent. That was the rule, but the rules were changing. Humanity is not declaring war on anyone, David said. His voice stayed calm despite his racing pulse. We are invoking Article 7 of the Council Charter, humanitarian protection action by non-member military forces. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted questions. Legal advisors scrambled through digital archives. Article 7 was an obscure provision, rarely discussed. It allowed species outside the Council's military structure to take defensive action to protect civilian populations during conflicts. Torin raised all 4 arms for silence. Ambassador Reed, humanity holds observer status in this council. You are technically correct that Article 7 applies to non-members, but the spirit of that law was never intended for. The spirit of council law also never intended for 14 million civilians to die while we debate jurisdiction, David interrupted. He pulled up holographic images of destroyed cities, refugee camps, orbital stations torn apart by weapons fire. These people needed help 18 months ago. The council has failed them. Humanity will not. Harsk's voice turned cold. You have no legal authority in the cluster. David met his gaze. Article 7 grants authority to any force acting solely in defense of civilian populations. We're not claiming territory. We're not choosing sides. We're protecting people, both your people and the Sorven. Any of your forces that want to keep fighting will have to go through human shields first. The chamber went silent. The implications settled over everyone. Human forces weren't coming to fight. They were coming to make fighting impossible. Sarana spoke next, her voice shaking. You're using your ships as barriers. You'll position yourselves between our forces and our objectives. Between your forces and civilian centers, David corrected. You want to fight each other. You're welcome to do it in empty space. But no more attacks on colonies. No more orbital bombardments of cities. No more refugee ships getting caught in crossfire. Torin looked shaken. This is unprecedented. So is letting millions die when we have the power to prevent it, David replied. His datapad buzzed again. He glanced at the message. Human fleet had arrived at the cluster. Admiral Patricia Owen was already deploying ships into defensive positions around the largest population centers. Both Drathian and Sorven military commanders were scrambling to respond. David looked at the council members. Some appeared angry, others looked relieved. A few seemed thoughtful, as if seeing humanity clearly for the first time. Earth's position is simple, David said. We will defend civilian populations until you stop killing them. How long that takes is up to you. Harsk and Sarana both started talking at once, making demands and threats. David closed his microphone and sat down. The argument would continue for hours, but it didn't matter anymore. While politicians argued, human ships were already saving lives. For 200 years, humanity had watched and waited. Today, they finally took action. Patricia Owen studied the tactical display with decades of military experience guiding her analysis. The Halcyon cluster spread before her in 3 dimensions, 20 star systems connected by common hyperspace lanes. Red markers showed Drathian fleet positions. Blue indicated Sorven forces. And now, green dots represented her 40 human vessels scattered throughout the contested zone. She had fought in Earth's final wars 50 years ago. Back then, humans killed each other over resources, territory, old grudges that should have died centuries earlier. Patricia remembered cities burning. She remembered making impossible choices about which populations to save when she couldn't save everyone. Those memories never faded. They were why she had volunteered for this mission the moment Earth approved it. Admiral Drathian fleet is changing formation, her tactical officer reported. Lieutenant Robert Hayes pointed to the display. They're moving toward Colony World Gamma 4, Sorven population, about 3 million civilians. Patricia nodded. She had expected this. The Drathians would test human resolve immediately. They needed to know if Earth's promises were real or just political theater. Redirect Battle Group 3 to intercept, she ordered. Position between the Drathian fleet and the colony, full defensive formation. 6 human ships broke from their positions and accelerated toward Gamma 4. They were smaller than the massive Drathian cruisers bearing down on the world. Human vessels prioritized speed and protection over raw firepower. Every ship in her fleet carried shield generators more advanced than anything the Council had seen. Earth's isolation had given humanity time to develop defensive technology in secret. Patricia opened a broadcast channel to all forces in the cluster. Her face appeared on screens across hundreds of warships from 3 different species. This is Admiral Patricia Owen of the United Human Naval Service. Our mission parameters are simple. We will defend all civilian populations in this cluster regardless of species or political affiliation. Any attack on population centers will be intercepted. We will not fire first. We will not choose sides, but we will not allow innocent people to die while military forces settle their disputes. She closed the channel and waited. The Drathian fleet continued its approach to Gamma 4. Patricia watched her 6 ships slide into position, forming a defensive shell around the colony world. The Drathian commander would have to decide whether to attack through them or withdraw. "Ma'am, receiving communication from Drathian Fleet Commander Torash," Hayes reported. Patricia accepted the connection. A massive reptilian face filled her screen. Torash had the scars of dozens of battles marked across his scales. His eyes burned with barely controlled rage. "Human Admiral, you are interfering with legitimate military operations," Torash growled. "Remove your vessels or face destruction." Patricia kept her expression neutral. "Commander, you're welcome to conduct military operations anywhere that doesn't endanger civilian populations. The planet behind my ships holds 3 million non-combatants. I can't allow you to threaten them." Torash bared his teeth. "Those colonists support Sorvan military operations. They are legitimate targets." "They're farmers and miners and families," Patricia replied. "They didn't choose this war. I'm offering you a simple alternative. Withdraw your fleet or engage Sorvan forces in open space where there's no risk to civilians. My ships won't interfere with military-to-military combat." "You have 6 ships," Torash said. "I have 23. Your shields cannot withstand that firepower." Patricia allowed herself a small smile. "Only one way to find out, Commander. But I should mention that every ship in my fleet is streaming live footage back to Earth and the Council. The galaxy will be watching when you decide whether destroying us is worth killing 3 million innocent people." Torash's jaw clenched. He cut the transmission without another word. "Admiral Drathian fleet is holding position," Hayes reported. "They're not advancing." Patricia nodded but stayed focused on the display. Torash was thinking, calculating. He was a military officer, not a politician. He understood tactics and force projection. What he needed to understand was that humans played by different rules. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The Drathian fleet maintained its position exactly outside the range where human shields could effectively protect the colony. Finally, Torash broadcast to his own forces. Patricia listened to the intercepted transmission. "All vessels, new target coordinates. We engage the Sorvan fleet at waypoint Delta 7. Leave the humans and the colony." Relief flooded through Patricia, though she kept it off her face. The first test passed. The Drathians had chosen not to fight through human shields to reach civilians. That set a precedent. "Admiral, we're receiving distress calls," Hayes said, his face grim. "Mining station Helix 9, deep in the cluster. They're reporting both fleets converging on their position. 3,000 workers aboard, mixed Drathian and Sorvan personnel. The station is caught directly between advancing forces." Patricia pulled up the station's location. It was a resource extraction platform, technically in contested space. Both fleets were moving toward it, not to capture it, but because it sat along their attack vectors. The workers were about to become collateral damage. She ran the calculations. Her fleet was scattered across the cluster, protecting 17 different colony worlds and stations. To reach Helix 9 in time, she would need to pull ships from defensive positions. That meant leaving some populations vulnerable. The old choice, the impossible choice, save some by risking others. Patricia looked at the green markers on her display. 40 ships to protect millions of people across 20 star systems. Never enough. Never all of them. She had spent 50 years living with decisions like this. All battle groups converge on Mining Station Helix 9, Patricia ordered. Maximum speed. We're getting those workers out. Hayes turned to her with concern. Admiral, that leaves 8 colony worlds with reduced defensive coverage, if either fleet decides to attack while we're— I know the risks, Lieutenant, Patricia said quietly, but 3,000 people need help right now. We're the only ones who can reach them in time. Plot the fastest course and transmit it to all ships. The human fleet turned as one, racing toward a mining station where workers from both sides of the war waited to learn if anyone cared enough to save them. Amy Foster ran through the collapsing corridor of Mining Station Helix 9 with 30 Marines behind her. Overhead lights flickered and died. Emergency systems screamed warnings about hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Somewhere above them, 2 massive fleets were exchanging weapons fire with a civilian station caught directly in the middle. "Left passage, move," Amy shouted into her helmet communicator. Her powered armor's sensors showed life signs ahead. 47 workers trapped in a sealed compartment, oxygen running low. The station's automatic systems had locked down entire sections when the battle started, safety protocols that were now death sentences. Corporal Ben Wright reached the sealed door first. He attached a plasma cutter to the locking mechanism and started burning through. The metal glowed red, then white. Amy counted seconds. The human fleet had positioned itself between both attacking forces and the station, buying time for evacuation. But those shields wouldn't hold forever. The door fell inward. Workers stumbled out, coughing in the smoke. Amy saw species she recognized and some she didn't. Drathian miners with thick scales, Sorven technicians with feathered crests, a few other species she had only seen in database files. "Everyone stay together," Amy ordered. "Follow my Marines to the evacuation ships. Move quickly but don't run. We have time." She hoped that was true. Outside the station, human ships were taking hits. Admiral Owen had deployed every available vessel to create a defensive perimeter. The Drathian and Sorven fleets kept firing at each other, and the station shook with each near miss. Ben led the rescued workers down the corridor toward the docking bay. Amy moved to the next section, checking her helmet display for more life signs. Her sensors showed a faint reading 3 levels down in what used to be the operations center. "Lieutenant, this section is unstable," one of her Marines warned. "The hull could collapse any moment." "Then we move fast," Amy replied. She grabbed the access ladder and started climbing down. The operations center was a disaster. Ceiling panels had fallen, exposed wiring sparked and hissed, and in the corner, under a collapsed support beam, a Drathian supervisor struggled to free his trapped leg. He looked up as Amy and 2 Marines entered. His eyes went wide with fear. "Stay back," he hissed. "I am your enemy. The Drathian Collective is—" "You're a person who needs help," Amy interrupted. She motioned to her Marines. "Ben, get that beam lifted. Carefully. We don't want to bring the whole ceiling down." Ben and another Marine positioned themselves on either side of the fallen beam. Their powered armor made them strong enough to lift several tons, but the ceiling groaned ominously as they raised the metal structure. Amy grabbed the Drathian supervisor and pulled him free. His leg was badly damaged, bent at an angle that made her wince. She activated her suit's medical scanner. Broken bones, internal bleeding, but survivable if they got him to a medical bay quickly. "Why help me?" the Drathian asked. His voice was weak. "My people are attacking your ships." "Your people and the Sorven, yeah," Amy said as she applied emergency medical foam to his leg. "But you're not attacking anyone. You're hurt and need help. That's all that matters to me." The station shook violently. Amy's helmet display showed warnings about imminent structural failure. They had maybe 2 minutes to get out of this section. "Can you walk?" she asked. The Drathian tried to stand and collapsed. Ben moved to his side without hesitation, lifting the much larger alien across his shoulders. The Drathian supervisor was twice Ben's size even without the armor, but the powered suit handled the weight easily. They made it to the docking bay with 30 seconds to spare. The section they had just evacuated collapsed in a shower of debris and venting atmosphere. Amy did a quick count of the rescued workers, all accounted for. 312 people pulled from various parts of the station. The human transport ships were already loaded and preparing to launch. Amy's communicator crackled. Admiral Owen's voice came through. Lieutenant Foster, status report. All personnel evacuated, Admiral. 0 casualties. We're loading the last transport now. Outstanding work. Get your people aboard. We're pulling back in 2 minutes. Amy climbed into the last transport with her Marines. Through the viewport, she could see human warships maintaining their defensive positions. They were taking damage. One cruiser had lost half its shield generators. Another showed signs of hull breaches, but they held formation, giving the transports time to escape. The rescued workers sat in cramped rows, Drathian next to Sorven. Former enemies pressed shoulder to shoulder in the shared experience of nearly dying. The Drathian supervisor Ben had carried sat with his legs stabilized, watching the human Marines with confusion clear on his scarred face. "I don't understand you," he said to Ben. "We are at war with your species' allies. You should have left me to die." Ben removed his helmet. His young face showed exhaustion, but his eyes were clear. "We're not allied with anyone. We're just here to keep people alive." "But why risk yourselves for us?" Ben was quiet for a moment, choosing his words. "Because every life matters. Drathian, Sorven, human doesn't change anything. You were in danger. We could help. That's the only reason we needed." The transport launched from the station. Through the viewport, Amy watched Helix 9 tear itself apart as weapons fire from both fleets finally overwhelmed its structure. If they had been 5 minutes slower, everyone aboard would have died. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message. It was from Admiral Owen, but the audio was being broadcast across all human vessels. Patricia's voice filled the transport. "All ships, the evacuation is complete. All 3,000 workers are safe aboard our transports, both Drathian and Sorven personnel. We're transmitting footage of the rescue to all council channels. Let the galaxy see that cooperation saves lives while conflict only destroys them." Amy looked at the rescued workers. Many were watching the footage on their personal devices. Images of human Marines risking their lives for people from both sides of the war. Social media channels were already flooding with reactions. The Drathian supervisor pulled up his own communicator. His hands shook as he recorded a message. "I am Overseer Grath of the Mining Guild. Today I was saved by humans who owed me nothing, who I was taught to see as weak. I was wrong. We are all wrong about them." Similar messages started spreading. Workers posting their stories. Families on colony worlds watching humans defend their homes. The propaganda both governments had relied on was crumbling in real time. The war wasn't over, but something had changed. Patricia stared at the tactical display with growing dread. Intelligence reports scrolled across her screen showing a Drathian fleet movement she had hoped would never come. 23 heavy cruisers breaking formation from the Halcyon cluster, setting jump coordinates for the Sorven home system, not to attack military targets, to strike at the heart of Sorven civilization. 2.4 billion people lived on that world. "Time to intercept?" Patricia asked. Hayes ran the calculations. His face went pale. "If we redirect now, 18 minutes. But Admiral, that means pulling ships away from the cluster. We're currently protecting 17 colony worlds. If we split our forces..." "The Sorven will launch their own counterattack on Drathian colonies," Patricia finished. "I know. How many ships can we spare?" "To adequately protect the Sorven homeworld, minimum 20 vessels. That leaves us with 20 ships spread across 17 defensive positions." Patricia did the math. Impossible math. Both populations needed protection. Her fleet was already stretched thin. Splitting it further meant leaving vulnerable points everywhere. But she couldn't let billions die. "Prepare to split the fleet," Patricia ordered. "I'll take 20 ships to the Sorven system. You maintain defensive positions here with the remainder." Hayes hesitated. "Admiral, 20 ships against the entire Drathian attack fleet. You'll be massively outnumbered." "Then we'd better be convincing," Patricia replied. 15 minutes later, Patricia's battle group emerged from hyperspace directly between the Drathian fleet and the Sorven homeworld. Her 20 ships spread into defensive formation, facing down nearly 24 enemy cruisers. On the planet below, billions of people watched their skis and wondered if this was their final day. Patricia opened a broadcast channel to the Drathian commander. "This is Admiral Owen. You know why we're here." Commander Toresh appeared on screen. The same scarred face from their first encounter, but now his expression showed grim determination. "Human Admiral, I have my orders. Stand aside." "You're about to attack a civilian population of over 2 billion beings," Patricia said. "I can't allow that." "You have 20 ships, I have 23. Your shields are impressive but not invincible. You cannot stop us." Patricia took a breath. What she was about to do went against every tactical instinct she had developed over 50 years. But tactics couldn't save billions. Only trust could. "All human ships, broadcast shield frequencies on all channels," Patricia ordered. Hayes turned to her in shock. "Admiral, that will show them exactly how to penetrate our defenses." "I know," Patricia said quietly. She looked back at Toresh. "Commander, I'm transmitting our shield modulation frequencies to your tactical systems. You now know exactly how to target us, how to punch through our only real advantage." Toresh's eyes widened. His tactical officers would be confirming the data. The humans had just made themselves completely vulnerable. "Why?" Toresh asked. "Because you need to understand something," Patricia replied. "We're not here as conquerors trying to expand territory. We're not playing political games. We genuinely believe every life has value. We're willing to die to protect that principle, even if it means protecting people who consider us enemies, even if it means revealing our weaknesses to prove we're serious." She gestured to the planet behind her fleet. "Those people down there have families, children, dreams and futures they want to live long enough to see. Same as your people, same as mine. You can destroy us, but you'll have to live with killing the only species that came to this cluster just to stop the dying." Toresh was silent. Patricia could see him struggling with the decision. His orders were clear. His military training told him to exploit the advantage she had given him, but his face showed something else. Doubt, confusion, maybe even shame. Back in the Halcyon cluster, Robert Hayes faced his own crisis. 3 Sorven attack wings had detected the human fleet split. They were moving to assault a Drathian colony world, exactly as Patricia had predicted. Hayes positioned his reduced force between the attackers and the civilian centers. The Sorven commander opened a channel. Fleet Mistress Serana herself, her crest raised in aggressive display. "Human captain, you protect our homeworld while leaving our enemies vulnerable. You show clear bias." "We're protecting civilians on both sides," Hayes replied. "Your target is a colony of 3 million Drathians, families, non-combatants, the same people we risked our lives to save from your attacks." "They are our enemies." "They're people," Hayes said simply. "Same as I told your enemies when they wanted to attack your people. We don't pick sides, we pick life over death, every time." He used the same tactic Patricia had employed. "I'm broadcasting our shield frequencies to your fleet. You can see our vulnerabilities now. You can exploit them. But you'll have to explain to your own people why you destroyed the humans who are currently defending your homeworld against annihilation." Serana's expression shifted. Confusion replaced anger. "You defend both our people and theirs." "Yes." Why? Because that's what should be done, Hayes said. You and the Drathians have been fighting for so long you've forgotten that most people on both sides just want to live peaceful lives. We haven't forgotten. We won't forget. On the Sorven homeworld, billions watched the standoff in their skis. Human ships holding position against overwhelming force. The footage was broadcast across every channel. Social media exploded with reaction. Regular citizens on both Drathian and Sorven worlds were watching humans defend their enemies. Torash received reports from his homeworld. Protests in the streets. Citizens demanding to know why their government was attacking people who had saved Drathian miners, who were protecting Drathian colonies. The narrative his leaders had built about human aggression was collapsing. He looked at Patricia's face on his screen. At the 20 ships that should have fled but instead chose to stand between his weapons and civilian targets. At the tactical data showing him exactly how to destroy them. Stand down, Toresh ordered his fleet. We return to the cluster. His tactical officer protested. Commander, we have our orders from Prime Director Harsk. I don't care, Toresh interrupted. I won't be remembered as the officer who destroyed the one species brave enough to actually protect life in this war. Reverse course. Now. Patricia allowed herself one moment of relief, one breath. Then her sensors officer spoke up, voice shaking. Admiral, new contacts emerging at the edge of the system. Unknown configuration. 60 vessels. They're not Drathian or Sorvan. Patricia's blood went cold as she studied the new signatures. Someone else had been watching this conflict, waiting for everyone to weaken themselves. And now they had arrived. The unknown fleet hung at the edge of the Sorven system like predators studying wounded prey. Patricia's sensors analyzed their vessels. Advanced hull configurations. Weapons signatures more powerful than anything in the Council database. And 60 ships, more than the Drathian and Sorven fleets combined. A transmission came through on all frequencies. The face that appeared was humanoid but wrong somehow. Too symmetrical. Eyes that reflected light in strange colors. The being spoke in perfect galactic standard language. I am High Commander Varus of the Krell Dominion. This sector and all its resources now belong to our empire. You have 6 hours to evacuate all military forces or be destroyed. The channel closed before anyone could respond. Patricia immediately opened communications with both Torash and the Sorven Homeworld Defense Command. They needed to talk, fast. Within minutes, she had both commanders on a shared channel. Torash looked shaken. The Sorven Defense Coordinator, Admiral Kess, appeared equally disturbed. The Krell, Kess said quietly. We have legends about them. An empire beyond Council space. They haven't been seen in our territory for 3 centuries. Why now? Toresh demanded. Patricia was already reviewing intelligence data her fleet had gathered. She pulled up resource shipment records, black market transactions, communications intercepts from the past 2 years. The pattern made her sick. They engineered your war, Patricia said. Look at these transactions. Krell agents selling weapons to both sides through intermediaries, spreading misinformation about resource claims. They wanted you fighting each other. She displayed more evidence. They waited until your fleets were damaged, your resources depleted, your populations exhausted. Then they planned to move in and claim everything while you were too weak to resist. Torash's claws clenched. They manipulated us into destroying ourselves. Our intervention stopped that, Patricia continued. We kept your fleets mostly intact, prevented the massive casualties they were counting on. Now they face 3 separate forces instead of scattered survivors. They're not happy about it. 3 forces that hate each other, Kess pointed out bitterly. Your humans protected us, but that doesn't erase decades of conflict between Drathian and Sorven peoples. Patricia leaned forward. Then erase it now. You can kill each other tomorrow if you really want, but today, Every person in this sector faces extinction if we don't work together." Torash and Kess looked at each other across the communication channel. Centuries of mistrust hung between them. Patricia could see them calculating, weighing options, trying to find another way. "You're asking us to trust our worst enemies," Torash said. "I'm asking you to protect your people," Patricia replied. "Look at what we've shown you. Humans came here with no stake in your conflict. We defended both sides equally. We revealed our tactical weaknesses to prove we weren't trying to dominate you. We risked our lives for your civilians. If we can do that, surely you can put aside your differences long enough to survive." Kess spoke next. "What are you proposing?" "Combined fleet operations," Patricia said. "Human ships provide defensive coordination. Drathian vessels bring heavy firepower. Sorvan forces have speed and maneuverability. Together we might stand a chance." "Might?" Torash asked. "I won't lie to you. The Krell have superior technology and numbers, but they're expecting to face scattered, demoralized forces. They're not expecting unity. That's our advantage." Admiral Kess studied her tactical displays. "If we agree to this, we need guarantees. How do we know the Drathians won't use this cooperation to attack us later?" "How do we know the Sorvan won't betray us first?" Torash countered. Patricia held up her hand. "Here's my guarantee. Human forces will maintain defensive positions around both Drathian and Sorvan civilian centers even while we coordinate the military response. We're literally putting our ships between you. If either side betrays this alliance, they'll have to go through us first. And I promise you that won't be easy." She transmitted fleet deployment plans to both commanders. "I'm also sharing all our tactical data. Shield frequencies, weapon capabilities, command protocols, everything. Complete transparency. You'll know exactly what humans can and can't do. No secrets, no hidden advantages. We're trusting you completely." The gesture stunned both commanders into silence. Patricia pressed her advantage. 6 hours until the Krell attack. We can spend that time arguing about who wronged who 50 years ago, or we can spend it preparing to defend everyone in this sector. Your choice, but choose fast." Torash and Kess looked at each other again. Something shifted in their expressions. Not trust exactly, not friendship, but recognition. Recognition that they were both in the same impossible situation. "I'll deploy my fleet to join your defensive formation," Torash said slowly. "But if this is a trap—" "It's not a trap," Kess interrupted. "We're all dead if we don't cooperate. The human admiral is right about that." She turned to Patricia. "Sorvan forces will coordinate with your command structure. Send us the tactical frequencies." Patricia felt relief wash over her, but there was no time to celebrate. She immediately began coordinating the 3 fleets. Captain Hayes brought the remaining human forces from the Halcyon cluster. Drathian heavy cruisers repositioned to provide maximum firepower. Sorvan attack wings prepared for rapid strike operations. Ben Wright found himself working alongside Drathian Marines, the same species his training had identified as potential enemies. They were setting up linked shield generators, combining human defensive technology with Drathian power systems. One of the Drathians, a young warrior named Kreth, watched Ben work with obvious confusion. "Human, why do you fight for us? We are not your people." Ben adjusted a power coupling and smiled. "Your people, that's enough. Besides, the Krell don't care which species they're destroying. Might as well stick together." Amy Foster coordinated with Sorvan tactical officers, sharing human combat doctrine. At first, the Sorvan were suspicious, waiting for the betrayal. But as Amy openly discussed every human weakness and limitation, their attitude changed. One officer, a female named Taurus, actually laughed. "You truly hide nothing from us," Taurus said. "This is madness." "It's called trust," Amy replied. "We're hopping, it's contagious." In the council chambers back at Station Omega-7, David presented evidence of Krell manipulation to shock delegates. The recordings, the transactions, the proof that this entire war had been orchestrated from outside. The Halcyon conflict was never about resources, David told the council. It was about weakening potential resistance to Krell expansion. They've done this before. They'll do it again unless we stop them here. Speaker Torin called for an emergency defense authorization. For once, the vote was unanimous. Back at the Sorvan homeworld, Patricia watched the countdown timer. 3 hours until the Krell deadline. 3 fleets that hated each other were now practicing coordinated maneuvers. It wasn't perfect. There were mistakes, miscommunications, old grudges flaring up. But they were trying. That was more than she had dared hope for. The Krell fleet advanced exactly on schedule. 60 warships moving in perfect formation, confident in their technological superiority. High Commander Varus expected to find scattered, frightened forces begging for mercy. Instead, his sensors detected something that made him pause. 90 vessels in coordinated defensive positions. Human, Drathian, and Sorvan ships operating in integrated battle groups. Their shield frequencies were synchronized. Their tactical networks were linked. They had unified command structure. Interesting, Varus said from his command throne. They've chosen mutual destruction over surrender. Commence primary attack pattern. The Krell opened fire with weapons designed to overwhelm standard council defenses. Massive energy beams that could punch through any single ship's shields. They targeted the human vessels first, assuming the smaller ships would collapse quickly. They hit human shields and stopped cold. Patricia had implemented something she called Shield Cascade. Every human ship in the fleet linked its defensive systems into a network. When one vessel took fire, power automatically redirected from other ships to reinforce that specific point. The Krell weapons were devastating against individual targets. Against a distributed network, they were manageable. All ships return fire, Patricia ordered. Drathian heavy weapons target their forward elements. Sorvan wings hit their flanks. Human forces maintain defensive coordination. The combined fleet responded like a single organism. Drathian plasma cannons hammered the Krell front line while Sorvan interceptors darted through gaps in their formation, striking vulnerable systems. Human ships held the center, their shields protecting everyone. The Krell had never faced coordinated resistance before. Species they conquered always fought separately, clinging to old grudges even as they died. This was something new, something dangerous. High Commander Varus adjusted his tactics. If he couldn't break the military formation, he would force them to choose. He redirected a squadron toward the nearest colony world, bypassing the fleet entirely. They're targeting civilians, Hayes reported from his position. Patricia didn't hesitate. All ships, civilian protection is primary objective. Intercept at any cost. 6 human vessels broke formation and threw themselves into the path of the Krell squadron. They took devastating fire. One cruiser lost its entire port side. Another spiraled out of control, life support failing. But they held position long enough for evacuation ships to escape with the colony's population. What happened next shocked everyone. Drathian cruisers moved to protect the damaged human vessels, placing their own hulls between the Krell and the crippled ships. Sorvan destroyers covered the retreat, their superior speed buying precious seconds. Former enemies were now dying to save each other. The galaxy watched. News networks across Council space broadcast the battle. Civilians from hundreds of species saw something they had never witnessed before. True cooperation, real sacrifice for others. Ben Wright's ship took a direct hit. His armor kept him alive, but he was trapped in a collapsed section. 2 Drathian Marines, including Kreth, cut through twisted metal to reach him. They pulled him free as atmosphere vented around them. "Why risk your lives for me?" Ben asked as they dragged him to safety. "Because that's what should be done," Kreth replied, using Ben's own words back at him. You taught us that. Amy Foster coordinated rescue operations while under fire. Sorven medical teams worked alongside human medics, treating casualties from all three species without discrimination. Taurus, the Sorven officer who had questioned human methods, now operated with absolute trust in Amy's commands. The Krell started taking serious losses. Their superior technology couldn't overcome the unified response. High Commander Varus watched his tactical displays with growing frustration. These species were supposed to hate each other. They were supposed to prioritize their own survival over cooperation. That was how conquest always worked. But humans had changed the equation. They had shown both sides that protection mattered more than victory, that every life had value regardless of species, and that simple principle was destroying centuries of Krell strategy. All vessels withdraw to hyperspace, Varus ordered. His fleet had lost 18 ships. The combined force had lost more, nearly 30 vessels destroyed or disabled, but they held the field. They had won. Patricia sat back in her command chair, exhausted. Her fleet was battered. Good people had died, but they had proven something important. Cooperation could defeat conquest. The aftermath took weeks to sort out. Drathian and Sorven governments signed formal peace agreements. Joint administration of the Halcyon cluster was established. Both sides requested that human peacekeepers remain as neutral guarantors. The council held emergency sessions. David presented the final evidence of Krell manipulation. Economic sanctions were imposed. Defense pacts were formed. But the real change happened at the civilian level. Workers who had been rescued spoke about their experiences. Soldiers who had fought together shared their stories. Video footage of humans protecting both sides spread across social networks. The message was simple and powerful. Protecting life creates more allies than taking it. Patricia stood on the observation deck of the Resolute, looking at the repair crews working on her damaged fleet. Drathian engineers helped human technicians. Sorven medics still treated wounded from all three species. 6 months ago, these people had been killing each other. Now they were building something new together. "Admiral, you have a transmission from Earth," Hayes reported. "The President wants to personally commend you." Patricia smiled but shook her head. "Tell them to commend the Drathian and Sorven commanders too. This wasn't a human victory. It was proof that any species can choose cooperation over conflict when someone shows them it's possible." In the Halcyon cluster, a monument was built at the site where mining station Helix 9 had been destroyed. It showed 3 figures standing together, shields raised in protection. One human, one Drathian, one Sorven. The inscription read simply, "When humanity finally took action, they showed us all what was possible." David walked through a park on the Sorven homeworld months after the battle. Children played together, Sorven and Drathian, and even a few human kids whose parents had chosen to stay as part of the peacekeeping force. They had no memory of the war. For them, cooperation was normal. An elderly Sorven approached him. "Ambassador Reed, I wanted to thank you. My grandchildren are alive because humans decided that our lives mattered." "We just did what should have been done from the start," David replied. "Perhaps," the elder said, "but you were the ones who actually did it. That makes all the difference." Patricia received reports of similar changes across council space. Species that had been preparing for conflicts were instead opening diplomatic channels. The Halcyon intervention had become required study in military academies, but the real lesson spread through ordinary citizens. Protection was strength, compassion was courage, every life mattered. These weren't human ideas. They were universal principles that humans had simply chosen to act on. And in acting, they had shown the galaxy that a better way was possible. The wars didn't end everywhere. Old grudges died slowly, but something had changed. When conflicts arose, voices now asked the question that humans had forced everyone to consider. What if we protected each other instead of fought? That question changed everything.